Oregon rolled out the red carpet for five-star wideout Dakorien Moore, and it still might not be enough.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks, which is why if you have not already, please like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to or watch this show, which today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. We'll talk about a question surrounding, yes, that big game on October 12th, that being Ohio State. And Oregon uniforms are buzzing. Is anybody surprised? And does it actually help? We'll talk about that today. But we start with Dakorien Moore. This is the biggest name on the minds of Oregon fans for 2025, and he should be. He should be. He is currently the most high-profile target that Oregon is after, and there are a couple other pieces of recruiting news I'll get to here, but by all accounts, Oregon had a big five-star recruiting weekend, and they did everything that they could. Did you see the uniform that DJ Pickett was in? Because I noticed, and I'll talk about it a bit later, but 5 stars all over the place. Big-time players also in attendance, and by all accounts, Oregon's rolling out the red carpet for Dakorien Moore. I mean, they had Evan Stewart showing up and, kind of poking fun and taking a video in a jovial ways, certainly how it appeared. They had Evan Stewart showing up. Evan Stewart probably isn't on Oregon's roster in 2025. Dakorien Moore could be. Oregon's doing everything they can. I still don't know if it's going to be enough. Texas, from what I have heard, is still the favorite to land him. He's a Duncanville High School product out there in Texas. Now, Rashad Sample's father is the high school there, or is the head coach at the high school there. So that connection certainly can't hurt. But still, even that might not be enough. Now, make whatever you would like of what I am about to read you here. A friend sent this to me who's a big Texas fan. Over at Inside Texas, someone posted, quote, Duncanville 5-star receiver Dakorien Moore is headed to the airport after his OV to Eugene. The Ducks did it big, as expected, but after catching up with a source close to Moore, it might not be enough. We'll have more from Moore and his family soon, but the early returns are Texas still likes to pick after the OV season. Now, is that an official report? No. I do think it is notable, though, that is a Texas site, that is a Texas fan, and even he is admitting, yeah, it sounds like Oregon really, really did it big, and that they did the visit the way that you would expect, and they are putting on the full court press. This is not a passive, hey, if you end up like an Oregon, or if this place doesn't work out, or if a coach who's recruiting you leaves. This is the guy who's the number one spot, and that indication is not my primary source of why I'm hearing that, Texas is closer. Certainly that's what Brian Smith has said on the show recently as well, but it's not impossible. I just want Oregon's expectations, the fans of Oregon, to be reasonable. And I think Dakorien Moore would be an awesome addition to the class. It's certainly not a need. The picture that, he had out there with Achilles Smith Jr., that'll make you dream. That'll make you think. That'll make you hope. But that's the latest on the biggest Oregon recruiting name right now. But not the only name that Oregon's after in the class of 2025. This one, I'll kind of get the other news out of the way before we move a little bit more positive here. Douglas Utu, 4-star offensive lineman from Bishop Gorman High School in Las Vegas. He has chosen to verbally commit to Tennessee. It does not sound, nothing's impossible. Does not sound like that's someone who'd flip away. And, I think that narrative gets tossed around a ton. Well, it's just a verbal commitment. It's just this. About 80+% of verbal commitments stay committed to that school. And, Oregon had just picked up a couple of offensive line commits within the last couple of weeks in Zaire Addison and Dimitri Manning. That might have been last week. Everything blends together in the summertime. But those two guys, both intriguing prospects. Manning, more of an interior guy. Addison certainly projects as a tackle who I think could be Oregon's starting left tackle with his athleticism in a couple of years. That's a position group, though, that in the class of 2025, I suspect Oregon will go after a couple more names. Sitting at 2 doesn't seem likely. 3 to 5 is probably the number. I think 3 is the minimum for offensive linemen. But Douglas U2 is a guy that I talked about here on the show before, and he's verbally committed to Tennessee. He's like the number 3 offensive tackle in his class. He might have been pushing towards a 5-star status. I have not double checked on that recently, but that's, not a whiff, not a miss for Oregon, but it's an opportunity that they weren't able to capitalize on. And so in recruiting, you're on to the next. It's why you got a big, long list. And also, you never want to burn bridges because the transfer portal is, of course, a thing. So that's the stuff that isn't necessarily as positive. I still like where Oregon is recruiting, and I think the next couple of weeks are going to really, really start filling out this 2025 class. But a couple other names to note that were on campus once again over the weekend. A bevy of 5-star players, including Trey McNutt, DJ Pickett. Those are both defensive backs. Pickett's going to be hard to pull away from Miami, but it is not impossible. Nothing ever is, but certainly things can be difficult. Michael Terry III, that's an athlete that I think Oregon is in a good position for. I've heard on a couple other shows and recruiting pundits that Oregon has done a good job recruiting him. Certainly that's somebody that you'd take adding to the class, projects most likely in the offensive side of the ball, is kind of a receiver tight end hybrid. Dallas Wilson, the current Oregon 5-star wide receiver commit, who they're going to have to keep recruiting. He was on campus this past weekend as well. And as usual, by all accounts and all reports, everything went according to plan. And Achilles Smith Jr. was on campus. And I like hearing that because something you can see, it's not a guarantee. I mean, you think back to 2023, Dante Moore committed after most everybody else already had, and then of course flipped to UCLA after Dillingham left for Arizona State. And now, of course, he's Oregon's backup quarterback going into this year. Go figure. College sports, it's a fun time. A lot of times you'll see a quarterback be a linchpin recruit because other guys will flock to him. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Smith has been committed to Oregon for a long time and tweeted out that he's still locked in and we outside. That's just the thing. Look, if you know, you know. It's something, it's a recruiting mantra. I think that the staff is picking up on with the Oregon O starting the word outside. We outside. That's what we're doing now, I suppose. But, Achilles Smith Jr. said that he's completely locked in. I haven't heard any recent buzz on Ty Hawkins, the 4-star TCU quarterback commit that Oregon was after. SMU's also getting into the mix there. So I think having Smith Jr. there on that weekend is certainly a positive, and you hope that it has positive effects going forward, and that guys see, oh, hey, this could be Oregon's start. This could be my starting quarterback. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Smith has been committed for a while, and Oregon has 3 wide receivers, and they're going for a 4th in this 2025 class. So commits are going to be coming along the way within, frankly, this week. I'd expect there to be at least one announcement for someone that is considering Oregon. I know that someone is planning to announce this week. That's Jordan Davison, the running back from Mater Dei. That's the plan, at least that I had last been told. And we'll see who else falls into line. I think Noah McHale, 4-star linebacker, had also been pondering a commitment this week or sometime soon. So the 2025 class is going to continue to fill out. Oregon won't get every single name that they want, but they are going to get more names here, and we will see some future Ducks decide to be Ducks here shortly. Drop your thoughts in YouTube comments or hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter, if you've ever got a question. I have a question. How many yards is Oregon going to put up against Ohio State? We'll talk about that one next. First, we're talking about FanDuel. I love sports. I hope that's obvious. I have talked about college football, played golf, and played wiffle ball all in the same day. True statement. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want, which is cool. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that I am in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers, not just new ones, with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Start making the most, not the least, the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Another true statement. In the office where I am, I can hear my brother and our friend playing FIFA upstairs. Video games, passionate experience. Okay. Let's talk about Ohio State here. This mailbag question came in. YouTube comments, X, formerly known as Twitter, or if you want priority access, go join the flock over at Subtext. That link in the description below wherever you listen to or watch this show. This question came in from Brandon. Oregon put up 505 yards on the Buckeyes in the shoe in 2021. 269 on the ground, 236 in the air. As much as Mario's offenses get criticized, do you think our offense puts up those kind of numbers on Ohio State this year at home? Well, one thing to remember about that particular game, number one, Ohio State, I don't think had hired Jim Knowles yet at defensive coordinator. I think that game was one of the reasons they actually fired the guy they had at defensive coordinator at the time, because Joe Moorhead was in his bag and he absolutely cooked him. Joe Moorhead is over at Akron, for those who are curious and struggling as the head coach. I don't think it's a particularly easy job in the Mid-American Conference, and it hasn't gone well so far. They've been well under 500 in his 2 seasons. At Mississippi State, he wasn't great. Then he came to Oregon, and look, he might just be one of those guys that's a really good offensive coordinator. I thought he was good. I thought he was significantly better than Marcus Arroyo. He out-schemed whoever that Ohio State DC was in that game. That's why he went to 505 yards and 269 on the ground. He ran the same concept, which is just receiver crack back, run to the edge. He ran it in 3 different looks, and Ohio State couldn't make the adjustment. They did not adjust the entire game. Joel Klatt was ripping them for it. Even when they finally went zone for that play when that play call came along, Oregon still picked up a first down. So that game was one where they played Fresno State the week before, and it felt like Oregon was saving everything for Ohio State. And it worked. It worked. Oregon beat Fresno State, then they beat Ohio State the following week. That offense was the same offense that couldn't score on 1st and goal inside the 5 against Stanford. That was the same offense that beat a 1-5 Cal team 24-17 at home. That was the same offense that got blanked in the first half on the road against Utah. They had a great day. There is such a thing in the context of a season or a game or a player. You catch lightning in a bottle and the stars align for you. And it was a good matchup. I mean, who's beaten Ohio State 3 years in a row? Michigan. You know who has... 2 guys that have the same philosophy about winning football games? Jim Harbaugh and Mario Cristobal. Line up, pound the rock, out-physical you. That's how they want to win. And that style beat Ryan Day 4 consecutive years. 21 Oregon, 22, 23, or 4 consecutive times. Michigan 3 years in a row, and Oregon once. That's who's beaten Ohio State in the last 4 years. So they have completely revamped their identity. If you look at the way that they played last year in their road game, in a win against Notre Dame, that was some gutsy stuff. The 2021 Ohio State team loses that football game probably by a couple possessions. But a year ago, they didn't. And this Ohio State team has a lot of the key returners, just like Oregon. It's a big reason why they're the 2 favorites in the Big Ten and big favorites to make the playoff and contend for a national championship. They have a lot of the same players. They have added a bunch of new players like Caleb Downs to that defense to make it even better. And they can play a more physical brand of football. So I think Oregon's offense is going to be superb this year. I think the number of yards they put up falls on Dylan Gabriel. I think it falls on how successful he is able to be against that stout Ohio State defense, because I expect the offensive line to be able to hold up in pass protection as they have for the last 3 years. Last 2 with Dan Lanning as a coach, but they've just been outstanding. They've been absolutely phenomenal the last several seasons. You're not going to run for 269 yards on this team. You're just not. That game was like 14-10 or 16-14. Like it was a slugfest. I don't think Oregon Ohio State looks like that. I think there's a greater likelihood it looks like Oregon Washington, but not quite as high scoring. I don't think you have the same level of quarterback play. Michael Penix and Bo Nix, it is a step down to Dylan Gabriel and Will Howard. Collectively, Gabriel better than Howard, closer to Nix than Howard is to Penix by a landslide. Still, you don't have as high level quarterbacks. You're going to have really, really good defenses. I don't think either team is going to push for 500 yards of offense. I think if one team does, they're winning the game by 10 or more points. Because I think both of these defenses are so good, are so talented, are so veteran-laden, and have coordinators that have been there for the last several years. You've got Tosh Lupoy, Chris Hampton, and Dan Lanning back, top 3 defensive coaches. Jim Knowles, I'm pretty sure, is back as Ohio State's defensive coordinator. They have got staff continuity. They've got player continuity, and they already had high-end talent and produced at a high level. Ohio State last year was not a premier offense, but they were a darn good defense. They were a darn good defense, and that's why they won 11 football games. So I think that for Oregon to put up 500 yards, Gabriel would have to have the game of his life, because you're not going to have, I think CJ Verdell went for like 180 and 3 touchdowns in that game. That's not going to happen. This Ohio State defense is too talented, and I love Oregon's offense. You're just not going to do that here. So I don't think that is particularly, like, Gabriel would have to go for at least 330 yards to get 500 yards of offense, which is not inconceivable. I, again, just don't, with the way that game is going to be played, I don't expect it to be a shootout. I expect it to be lower scoring than Oregon-Washington games last year. I don't expect it to be as low scoring as Ohio State-Notre Dame. I think this is a game that is played in the mid to high 20s, whereas Washington games were mid to high 30s. I think this is a game that is played in the mid to high 20s, and it's a 28-24 or 27-24, 26-23, whatever. Like one of those sort of football games, because of the caliber of defenses you have. And the offenses are incredibly capable. But what do we know about Chip Kelly? He likes to run the football. He likes to run the football. Sure, they'll throw it down the field. They'll take their shots. So will Oregon. But both head coaches, both philosophies are, I think striving to be pretty balanced, but want to have the run game be a primary element of what they do. So when you factor that in, I think it's hard to see the offense is taken off. I would be surprised if there's a combined 300-plus yards rushing in this game between the two teams because of the way that the defensive fronts look. I mean, Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau for Ohio State, and guys like Jordan Birch and Jeff Bossa and Derek Harmon, Jamari Caldwell for Oregon, all the edge guys who are going to be true sophomores this year. There's just a bunch of talent over there. And when you have those sorts of defensive players, they just make it tough. So I don't think, like, you can say, well, Mario's offenses weren't as good. No, they absolutely were not. But that was their best game. That was their absolute positive best game that season. They peaked. They peaked in that game right there. And, they went on to have a 10-win season. Okay, great. Made the Pac-12 championship game. Cool. That offense was significantly worse than the one that Oregon has here, but the drop-off there is not as severe as the growth from the Ohio State defense. So I hope that answers your question, because I think it's a really good one. And I'm excited for that game. I mean, I don't care for the Pac-12 imploding and Oregon having to go to the Big Ten, but that game is going to be freaking awesome, and I really hope it's game day. There are some competitors for College Game Day that week. I think that's Georgia-Florida week, and Tennessee's got a big game, maybe against Alabama or somebody. There are some big games that week, but game day should be in Eugene. And Oregon is making sure, as always, that you're paying attention to what they're doing with uniforms. Surprise, surprise. I'll talk about that next. And does it actually help? I think it does. First, this episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So did you see the big tease? It was a big tease. That's what it was. There was a big tease with D'Anthony Thomas about these Generation O uniforms. I don't know entirely what to expect. I just know I have high hopes. I saw DJ Pickett wearing the steel-plated shoulder pad tips on his visit, and oh my gosh. They're so good. They're so phenomenally good. Just utterly fantastic. And look, we're getting towards the end of June. I am so on board with Oregon putting this sort of stuff out there. Get people's attention. You're recruiting right now. Oregon is trying to fill out its 2025 class. It's a great time to announce stuff like this. You know why? Because it builds a brand. And some people don't like it. You're just about uniforms. You're just about flash and whatnot. Well, it makes you identifiable. How many times, for my everydayers out there, how many times has Brian Smith come on the show and said, yeah, Oregon's in the mix and don't really know how. And they're just kind of the outlier. Because you see the O and you think of something. And you think of something good. So I have high hopes for the uniforms. This question came in from Subtext, where you get priority access, free 14-day trial. Then it's just $5 a month. You get all sorts of perks. With the official release date for the football uniforms being Wednesday, which it is, Wednesday, June 26th, do you have any predictions and or thoughts on what the uniforms will or should look like? I think there'll be a modernized throwback with the O from Joey Harrington era on the helmets, the Fighting Duck logo on the throwback style sleeves with the stripes and pants in a dark forest green, yellow, white, black, and a chrome helmet version with steel pants to fit. Can we just stop? There's still another sentence on this question. Well, why don't I finish that up? As well as the classic throwback for certain games, it fits well with the classic looks of the Big Ten while also having that Oregon flair. Can we just appreciate for a moment the absolute depth and specificity of this question and the idea of what Oregon could do here? I appreciate that very much. So I saw the DJ Pickett uniform, and look, I think that's just for a visit. I don't think that's a way that Oregon would tease a new release. I think the Generation O uniforms, they've been hyped up for a while. I think they are going to be something completely new. When you say Generation O, and when you look at, little Easter eggs perhaps that have been dropped in marketing videos for this sort of stuff, it feels like Joey Harrington era O on the side of the helmets is going to be a factor. I hope chrome helmets continue to be a thing. The chrome space age helmets that Oregon has worn in the Rose Bowl a couple times, where it reflects the sunset. You talk about the pageantry of college football. The NFL doesn't have that. The NFL doesn't have this. When the NFL wears cool uniforms, you go, oh, it looks like a college uniform. Yeah, they're trying to do this sort of stuff, and I'm all about it. So I think it'll be... gosh, it's hard to make a prediction. I have a hard time believing, given that the court at Matthew Knight Arena was just redone, that there isn't going to be some connection between the two. I don't know what that is, whether it's a color scheme, a shade of green that is used. You know what I could see? Think about this. On the shoulder pads, we have seen the steel plates. We've seen different types of wings. We've seen nothing at all. Those ducks that are flying on the new court at Matthew Knight Arena, I could see those being on the shoulder pads. I could see it. I could absolutely see it. But it does feel like when you go Generation O and you make that ode to Joey Harrington, that you're going to do something like a more modernized look of those uniforms. I'd be down. And while we're on the subject, I'll end this thought with this. There is absolutely, positively zero reason, no excuse to not do a throwback every single year. That last year, Wazoo in the Fiesta Bowl, maybe the best Oregon uniform ever. They should do a new throwback every single year. Fire me up with it. And at some point, the Jeremiah Masoli, Darren Thomas wing jerseys are going to be throwbacks. don't have to twist my arm. Well, you put those in there as much as you like. I think they look sweet. All right, we'll end with a fun question here. This one from Blazer Duck. Spencer, Oregon has been able to up their game in recruiting, transfer portal, and on-field success. Yeah, that's mostly true. Fun question for you. What can Puddles, the greatest mascot of all time, do to up his game? Curious on your thoughts. Well, I thought he upped his game last year with, I think it was around Halloween time, when he had the little duck. Like, he went in as the big duck, and the little duck came out. Look, Puddles is perfect. I mean, he's just chef's kiss. I am so happy that he is Oregon's mascot. I think that for the showmanship element that adds to the pageantry of college football and the game day experience, I think having a couple things like that a year. I don't think every day, because if you go overboard, it can be too much and comes off like you're trying too hard. I thought that thing last year, it got impressions around on social media, and that's the idea. That's the idea. I would also like to see a return to push-ups. Like, Oregon doesn't have the Chip Kelly offenses, but gosh, they were 44 points a game last year. They're going to be in the mid to high 30s again this year. Not as if they don't have the ability to do that. So come up with fun things like the go in big, come out small sort of stuff, 2 or 3 times a year maybe, and keep emphasizing the push-ups. Just keep driving them home. But I mean, Blazer Duck, I love where your head's at. I'm just Puddles. Man, he's good. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.